All right, here we go. So we're gonna talk through this chapter 13. So we're looking at Congress, president, and the budget. So what does political spending look like? Now, when we look at political spending, we have to understand that not just one party is involved. Okay, so there's multiple parties involved there in this decision making, and hopefully you saw that in the chapter. Primarily, your two big players are the executive branch and the legislative branch. And so looking at how two branches of government work together to make the budget. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a couple years ago, maybe this was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, they said like the national parks were kind of shutting down, and then you weren't getting mail because post office mailmen and mailwomen are not getting paid. They're on furlough and extended leave because Congress couldn't agree to an agreement for the budget.
Is that similar to what was happening with the like the trash?
In a very large scale, but the trash companies that we're going through right now are private businesses. So they and the union of the workers had to come to an agreement with the city on that. Versus mail, that's federal, right? So if I were to go, hey, what things are federal, who are federal workers in our society? Policemen? Yep. Firefighters, who works for the government? Mail, so Homeland Security, so yeah, like border security, FBI, think more common. What city workers though? Like, give me more specific, like construction workers, not necessarily. Construction workers are usually private businesses. Nope, cashiers are all private businesses, right? So like Vons is a private business. Teachers, absolutely. So very commonly, I'm a government worker, right? I work for the government. So, but the problem is this, wait, why do mailmen not get paid and stop their work, but why aren't teachers stopping their work, right? And so essentially the budget still runs so that people can still get paid, but non-essential workers oftentimes are the first to get to take a step back. We're going to look at what happens and why the budget is important. So first of all, we have to understand 4 key terms. The first term is budget, right? So when you want to plan something, you have to have a budget. The budget for your family, go home and ask your parents, like, hey, how much do they spend? And you honestly, your parents will be able to say, should be able to often say like, oh, we spend this much on groceries, we spend this much on rent, this much on electricity and gas and water and things like that. And there's a budget. And so think of that in not just like thousands of dollars, but literally like billions of dollars. And oftentimes we're going to talk about our debt and what that means, right? The second term that we have is deficit. Deficit is in excess of federal expenditures over federal revenues. So looking at the following 2 terms, expenditures is how much you spend, revenues is how much you earn. What should be greater, expenditures or revenues? Yeah, how much you make should always be more than how much you spend. Okay, that's just good spending habits. Yeah, if you're taking finance now, you'll learn that. Yeah, you should earn more than you spend. If you spend more than you earn, what does that create? That creates debt. Okay, very good. So where do revenues come from? The primary source of revenues comes from something that happens every year, and it's called tax. Okay, well, one, tax happens every day, but the main source is income tax. So how many of you work right now? Anyone work? Where do you work?
This wing place.
This wing place? El Pollo Grill? You're starting to work at Starbucks? Starbucks, great. When each of these places offered, so those of you that are starting to work or whatever, how much do they pay you per hour? 1450, 1550? Not yet, but probably 1550 if you're at Starbucks. Huh? 15, so it ranges, yeah? How long have you been working at this wing place? You barely started, so have you gotten your paycheck yet? Okay, all right, so you don't count right now. Have you gotten your paycheck yet? Have you gotten your paycheck? Okay, think of your first time you got your paycheck. How many hours was on your first paycheck? Like 25 hours. That's a lot of hours. So 25 times $15 is a lot of money. It's 400. I think it's 400. It's close to 400. Janessa, how much showed up on your
Well, I don't count because I know it's like income tax, but it usually it's the same for the tips. But if I did something like I guess when I didn't get tips, if I was counting it would be like 50.
yeah, it's actually a lot. A significant chunk gets taken out. That imagine magnify that to say a monthly salary of like you get $3,000 instead of getting 3,000, you get 2,000 something dollars, right? Yes.
My dad works for the water district. He makes like maybe 3,000 like a month, and he gets cut like 1,500 a month because of
Sometimes it can be very high, yeah. And so, but part of it is income tax, but part of it also goes towards like retirement funds. You can allocate that, but income tax varies depending on how much you make. The 16th Amendment allowed Congress to levy an income tax. This is an actual federal, like this is a constitutional law, right? And individual taxes account for that. Where else do we get taxed? When you buy something. When you buy something, you get taxed. Whether that's incorporated in the price already, like in the CSL store, that's incorporated in the price, you're paying $1 flat, but there's, when you go to the grocery store, you see the +%, right? But the thing about those taxes are if you go to National City, if you go to McDonald's in National City and a McDonald's here in Chula Vista and a McDonald's up in LA, most of the prices are generally the same, but they might differ by cents. Why? Location taxes, so part of taxes go to the city, right? And so cities also determine taxes. It's literally cents. It's like literally sometimes like not even 1%, like 0.5% different sometimes, okay? And then the issue here and what we need to look at is income tax is progressive, right? So those with more income pay higher rates of tax on their income. My brother makes a lot of money. My brother makes 6 figures. I don't make 6 figures. But he's a UX designer. So he designs like user experiences. He gets taxed higher. Does he still make way more than I do? Absolutely. But he is in a higher tax bracket. Therefore, he gets more taken out of his check. So we're going to look at taxes going into different things, like Social Security and things like that. Yes.
which is like why it's not fair for millionaires with Jeff Bezos to not pay anything in taxes.
No, actually, so actually,
Amazon.
a lot of the progressive tax, yes, they get exemptions and like ways around it for sure. But what the actual, like the Democratic progressive tax bill is actually aiming to do is to tax them even higher, right? Which makes sense from a standpoint, right? But from another standpoint, it's also very not, it's like, you would be able to understand why it's not fair, right? In the same way you look at your tax thing and you go, like, you're gonna make money at Starbucks, right? You're gonna look at it and you're gonna go, wait, 30% of my money that I worked for is gone. In that same context, imagine if someone said, well, you're gonna go into a higher work where you're gonna make a lot more money and we're gonna take away 50%. And yes, you can live off the 50%, but in your mind, you're never gonna get away from the fact that I worked for that. You know what I mean? Yes.
I don't think the question but in the chapter it was saying how like a portion is also taken out by like Social Security.
Yes.
So does that mean that like the longer you work or the less you work, that'll determine how much Social Security you get?
No, Social Security is determined
By
by age. So, but the amount of people working at any given time pay into that social security. So think of it as like a fund that'll go into that. That's how that tax works. So that is a good question. Okay. Taxes also go towards Medicare. Okay. And so I think it's going to be a little bit later, but we care for the elderly. Okay. And so Medicare, when you think of Medicare, you think of it's for the elderly. Medicaid, you aid those that are poor. And so aid for the poor, care for the elderly. That's how you'll be able to differentiate for both of those. Another source of federal revenue is this. Sometimes we need to spend what we need to spend. I'll give you an example. A lot of you are about to go make one of the biggest decisions in your life in a couple months. And which college do you go to? I am willing to bet that 90% of you and your parents do not have enough money to pay for college full out. Most people don't. And that's okay. Is college a necessity?
No.
Well, straight out, no. But in a lot of your minds right now, in our society, it is a necessity. You need college to further most of your life. Is that saying that college is the only path? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that. But a lot of you in your minds, when you make that decision, it is going to be a necessity. Therefore, you're going to have to borrow money, right? That's where FAFSA comes in. So another source of revenue, even though you're going to eventually owe, is that money comes back and it comes from borrowing. Okay. So debt, federal debt is the sum of all borrowed money that is still outstanding and how much we have to pay back. And the government competes with other lenders, meaning that there's private businesses, banks that will try to lend money to give you better rates so that they can benefit. And so the government has to be able to keep their rates competitive. Otherwise, no one's going to borrow from and the government's going to not have enough support there. So you'll see literally from the 70s onwards, the federal debt keeps increasing. Okay, it keeps increasing. It is a problem when you think about it. So every president is going in owing billions, trillions of dollars. Okay, trillions of dollars, not billions. Okay. The question isn't like, yes, obviously they should be trying to get to zero, but it's more about managing that so it doesn't increase too much. And then you guys read about this, right? Tax loopholes, expenditures, reduction, reform. Okay. I'd say just get a good understanding of that. I'm not going to cover too much of that. But expenditures, we have to figure out where do we spend our money on, right? In the chapter, where does it say some of our biggest spendings was? Military is one of them. Or maybe not biggest. Go ahead. What other things do we spend on? Education. Education, military, Social Security. Where else does money go out towards? To us, yeah, to students, like education for sure.
Medicare?
Yes. Medical, like the how else?
We're talking now stimulus checks.
Stimulus checks, very good. How else? The roads you drive on, partially paid by the government. Yeah, public park upkeep, building, like civic building upkeep, right? Civic building buildings, right? Then anyone, I don't know if anyone lives by up by like Oxford area, by Hilltop and Third, the new fire station. That's not paid. That's paid. Yes, that's not. It's not paid by the people. It's not paid by a business. It's paid by the government, right? Yes.
They also build a fire like department next to it's by the library. And that I think it's also paid by the government.
Yeah. All of them are. Police stations, all that stuff. New patrol, when we talk about new patrol cars, all of those things. Okay, so, but another part is this, border. Every time you cross to and from TJ, those border patrol people, those are all paid by, those are government officials. Those are all paid by that, right? And so the increase of national security, especially post 9/11, like increased how much we spend on national security. And yes, we talk about civil rights and like discrimination and all of that stuff later on, but we have to understand that all of those things matter. Let's backtrack 4 or so years. Donald Trump promised something, yeah? What did he promise? Promised to build a wall. Did he try to actually build a wall? He did try to build a wall. The question is, why didn't he? What didn't get passed? What bill? What part of the bill? It's not the concept of the wall.
Getting money from Mexico, no?
Partially that, but even if Mexico said no,
Just
getting money from our government. Yo, so exactly. And so the Congress rejected the proposal for it. And that's actually partially why we went into the furlough and what I was talking about earlier, and how Mailman National Park shut down for a little bit, because literally they didn't come to an agreement.
You need to declare a state of emergency to try to get past.
And they would declare a state of emergency, but like, I mean, they do that. It's not as rare as you think it is. It actually happened a couple times, not just in Donald Trump's presidency. It actually happened in Obama's presidency too. And it's happened in previous presidencies. So the fact that Congress and the president can't agree on the budget. It essentially is like this. If your parents were like, your dad wants to buy a new car, your mom was like, no, I want to make sure we save that money for something that we need, say your education, paying for your college, and they can't come to agreement. So they go, you know what? Screw it. No one's getting anything. Yeah? No one's getting anything. Screw it. Obviously, people still need to eat. Obviously, you still got to pay the electricity for the bills and your mortgage and your rent. Okay. So obviously those things are happening, but the big things are like, nah, you know what? We're not going to pay for that. We're not going to buy anything until we figure this out. And that's essentially what happens. Okay. And that's essentially why the wall wasn't built. Lastly, we are going to talk about, you know what, let's just end there. Understanding these major concepts of budgeting is important for us. And so what you're going to actually do right now is you're going to go into your OneNote. There's a assignment called Understanding the Federal Budget. Your job is to examine these graphs. One of the key things, hold on, as you guys are opening this up in OneNote under Unit 5, one of the key things I want you to understand is this. Graph analysis and chart analysis is going to be a concept that we're going to work over this unit. And I need us to really understand that. Okay. Understand trends. Look at why things are happening when things are happening. You might not know the exact reason, and that's okay, but you should be able to identify a trend. Why is it it is declining, it is increasing. Why might that happen? Go ahead. Not a lot. It's enough though for us to be spending a unit focused on it. Perfect. All right, so while let's go ahead and take a look at that. Share the screen to, what's this? All right, understanding the federal budget. So you're going to go to this website right here. you're gonna answer the following questions. And then you're looking at these growing debt graphs, okay? And then you're gonna play a game, okay? You're gonna apply your knowledge. Think of this like the Oregon Trail game that we played last year that you did for extra credit if you did. But you're essentially going to try to pass a budget. And we'll see how you do, okay? And then, hold on really quickly, as you do this, you need to make sure you take notes on which ones you're choosing. If you play the game and then you get to the end and you're like, I did not take any notes on my investments, general government spending, defense spending, healthcare, you're gonna have to try to go back. You're gonna have to go back and do it. So make sure when you play your game, have your OneNote open so you could just be typing as you make your decisions. Cool? Sweet. Then we are good. Make sure you get to unit 5. And then this weekend, make sure you do the second half of the reading. If you are in period 2, I'll be stamping. You're gonna have to if you're in period 2, you're gonna have to submit your chapters, a picture of your chapters on Jupyter to me, please. Okay, so go to the assignment and submit it. And then next week, just a heads up, I will be gone Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have a conference that I'm supposed to be at. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be next to the happiest place on earth. It's in the resort. I mean, not the resort, the hotel. It's in the hotel so that I don't know. There's no time. I wish. But here's what's going to happen on Monday, Tuesday. I'm actually going to be introducing the concept of a research paper because part of getting you prepped for college is being able to write papers for any of your English or history classes or social science classes. So you'll be ready for that. Okay. So otherwise, get to it. And